Hello everyone. In this video lesson I am going to present the old is gold examination questions of Major English Grade 12. Let's begin. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2057, attempt all the questions, Group A 1. Attempt any one of the questions, 10. Daisy once had coldly rejected Gatsby's love for her, but Gatsby shares passionate feeling to her. Explain the possible reasons why Gatsby tries so hard to win back Daisy to his love. B. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a tragedy of American dream. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. 3 times 5 equals 15. Nick Carraway's first meeting with Gatsby in the Gatsby mansion. B. Tom Buchanan's attitude to the fame of Gatsby. C. Life of rich fashionable young women in the American jazz age as shown in The Great Gatsby. D. Gatsby's war experience in Europe. E. The wit, humor and tenderness of feeling in The Great Gatsby. 3. Answer any one of the following. 10. How did the lieutenant lose his arm in the story, An Episode of War? How does the wound set the lieutenant apart from his fellow soldiers? B. Describe the events that normally take place in the working day of a salaryman in Japan. How do you view that the salaryman is representative of Japanese white-collar workers? 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. 3 times 5 equals 15. What is the comic situation faced by Zedima? B. Why does Mrs. Stoner believe that a female mosquito needs the blood for her eggs? C. What is the theme of the story, Dushu? D. Is there such a thing as a smell of poverty? If so, what is it? E. How does science fiction differ from other kinds of fiction? Group B 5. How does Maria bear the series of tragic happenings to her family? In the end, how does Maria console herself? Riders to the Sea, or what are the pains and anxieties of the father of a grown-up daughter as experienced by Chabukov? What makes Chabukov so desperate as to wish to put bullet through his own head? A marriage proposal. 10. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. E is compulsory. 3 times 5 equals 15. How does Ma Kirby make her children pay attention to good manners, e.g. respect for God, good manners, respect for one's family? B. Are the autograph hunters who crowd outside the 21 Club real dropouts of society? C. How does Corporal Brewster view the changes that had taken place in the society, e.g. education, transportation, recruiting and training for soldiers, since the day of his youth? D. Why does Sylvette call Personette a hero? E. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. What more can we want than that? No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied. Group C 7. Answer the following questions. 10. What does the world look like to the speaker? I. The poem, Dover Beach. What is it in reality? B. Why does Langston Hughes describe his poem a fragment? Why is it Afro-American? Why does the poet feel dislocated? 8. Answer any three of the following. 3 times 5 equals 15. What is a nonsense rhyme? Explain it with example you have read. B. In what type of story would you come across a silver trout changing into a glimmering girl? C. What is the secret about the birth of Lady Clare? D. What type of a book does the poet ask us to turn the page of? E. Explain the following line with reference to the context. A perfect woman, nobly planned to warn, to comfort and to command. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2058. Attempt all the questions. Group A 1. Attempt any one of the questions. Describe the symbols applied in The Great Gatsby. B. The Great Gatsby assumes that the idea of American dream rooted in the concept of life, liberty and pursuit of happiness is far from reality. Discuss 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Write a character sketch of J. Gatsby. B. Comment briefly on the presentation of Nick Carraway. C. What attraction does The Great Gatsby have for a filmmaker? D. What is the Valley of the Ashes applied for? E. What is Fitzgerald's view of the American dream? 3. Answer any one of the following. A. What is Parker's purpose in defining poverty as she does? B. Does the story imply that modern civilization has alienated man from his true self or nature? Give reasons for your answer. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Is there any reason for Crane's refusal to give the lieutenant's name? The episode of war. B. What are the working conditions of the old man like? C. What is the most terrible thing about the story, the hunter-gracchuses? D. What are the 3 reasons that Mencken gives for his support of capital punishment? E. What are the factors which impair the individual's abilities to plan for the future? Group B. 5. Answer briefly any one of the following. A. Give an account of the people and places that the members of the Kirby family see during their happy journey. B. Narrate the events which cause anxiety to the young lovers. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Who were the dead men Maria is paying for? B. Why is Chabukov surprised at the appearance of his visitors? C. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. Oh, isn't he a fine man? I never saw such a man as that down Leighton Way. And how kind he was. Think of him reading all that to me about Uncle. D. What is the attitude of autograph seekers to Lana Turner? E. How did the Globe provide an opportunity for romance? Group C. 7. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. How does Shakespeare want to immortalize his love? Do you think art can really immortalize people? B. How does Auden support his views about human suffering with the example of a painting? 8. Answer any three of the following items. C is compulsory. A. Why does the poet feel dislocated? B. Why are sons and daughters compared to inanimate objects? C. Explain this stanza. The old earl's daughter died at the breast. I speak the truth, as I live by bread. I buried her like my own sweet child and put my child in her stead. D. What does the world look like? What is the reality? E. What is the tone of E? E. Cummings for prodigal read generous. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2059. Attempt all the questions. Group A. 1. Attempt any one of the questions. A. The Great Gatsby is a comment on the American dream. Explain briefly. B. Justify the title, The Great Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Explain the symbols of green and white colors in The Great Gatsby. B. Write about the separation of Daisy and Gatsby. C. Describe Nick's Tea Party. D. Describe the extreme ways of love shown by Gatsby for Daisy. E. Show your acquaintance with the historical and literary influences on The Great Gatsby. 3. Answer any one of the following. A. Describe the nature and sort of the conflict in the story, the use of force. B. How does Steinem differentiate the future planning, which is culturally masculine habit of planning, to women's plans for future in the essay The Time Factor? 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Justify a doctor's use of force on a patient as shown in The Use of Force. B. How does salaryman represent Japanese white-collar workers? C. How can you say the old is a rebel in the story, The Big Fish? D. Describe Madame Schwartz's personality as portrayed by the narrator in the story, Die Grasso. E. What are the factors which make fiestas so popular in Mexico, and what are the psychological and cultural motivations behind them? The Day of the Dead. Group B. 5. What are the character traits of the young romances as Sylvette and Personette portrayed in the romances? Or what are the incidents which bring Nora Brewster and Archie MacDonald together? 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. E is compulsory. Describe Bobolink's inability to get Elizabeth Taylor's autograph. To Bobolink for her spirit. B. Describe the romance opportunity provided by the glove in the dram, Lord Byron's love letter. C. Write about the purpose of Lomov's visit to Chabukov's house in the play. A marriage proposal. D. What trait of the character of the older woman is reflected when Mark Kirby asks Beulah to lie down and shut her eyes for 10 minutes? E. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. The monster. He not only grabs other people's property, he calls them names to boot. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. A. What is the tone of the poem, The Tiger? B. How can art immortalize people? Shall I compare thee a summer's day? 8. Answer no. E. And any other two of the following. What do you mean by simile and metaphor? Give 2 examples of each. B. How can you say Lord Ronald loves Lady Clare truly and honestly? Lady Clare. C. Why does the poet feel alienated? Afro-American fragment. D. What does that neon light refer to and how is it affecting modern men's life? E. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. Demur, you're straightway dangerous and handled with a chain. Higher Secondary Education Board. Examination papers. Examination 2060. Attempt all the questions. Group A. 1. Attempt any one of the questions. A. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a symbolic novel. B. Discuss Fitzgerald's motives for writing The Great Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. What type of text is The Great Gatsby? Write in brief. B. Discuss Gatsby's death in brief. C. Do you agree with Fitzgerald's verdict on The Great Gatsby as a title? D. Discuss Tom's attitude towards Gatsby. E. Discuss the role of Daisy Frey in the novel in brief. 3. Answer any one of the following. Describe the grain, inhuman picture of war presented in an episode of War. B. Discuss Mencken's 3 reasons for his support of capital punishment. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. Explain the central theme of the story, The Jar. B. Comment on the few selected instances of comic elements in The Valiant Women. C. Explain the plight of an old man who wishes to buy a fish to make soup for his sick wife. The Big Fish. D. Describe Salaryman's job in brief. A day in the life of Salaryman. E. How does Goshgarian distinguish science fiction from other kinds of fiction? Zeroing in on science fiction. Group B. 5. Discuss Riders to the Sea as a unique modern tragedy in one act. Or make a comparison of the characters of Chabukov and Lomov. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. E is compulsory. What is the role of Winston Tutwiler? Lord Byron's love letter. B. What part of the Bible does the corporal find interesting and why? Waterloo. C. Discuss what happened outside the St. Regis. To Bobolink for her spirit. D. How does Personette justify his presence in the garden? The romances. E. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. My heart. My heart, where am I? Where's the door? Ooh, I think I am dying. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. How does Milton associate his life with light? On his blindness. B. Discuss Dover Beach as a love poem in the lyrical style. 8. Answer no. E and any other two of the following. Why do the stars throw down their spears? The tiger. B. What is the poem about? To the moon. C. What is sonnet? Write a short note on Shakespearean sonnet. D. What is created by history books? Afro-American fragment. E. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. A perfect woman, nobly planned, to warn, to comfort, and command, and yet a spirit still, and bright with something of angelic light. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2061, Attempt all the questions, Group A 1. Attempt any one of the questions. Sketch briefly the character of Gatsby. B. Comment on the suitability of the title of The Great Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. What does Gatsby's car symbolize? How is it proved to be the cause of his downfall? B. Discuss the role of social gathering in The Great Gatsby. C. Write a note on Tom Buchanan's attitude to the fame of Gatsby. D. What kind of personality has Gatsby built of himself? E. What part does George Wilson play in Gatsby's story? 3. Answer any one of the following. What are the implications of Crane's comparison of the actual battle to an historical painting? The episode of war. B. Does the story imply that the modern civilization has alienated man from his true self or nature? Give reasons for your answer. Douche. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. How do you explain the difference between the terms class and caste? Discuss with examples. The time factor. B. Why did Parker quit her job? What is poverty? C. What were the working conditions of the old man like? The big fish. D. Chekhov says unhappy men are selfish. How does the statement apply in this story? Enemies. E. What is the basic conflict in the story? The valiant women. Explain. Group B. 5. Describe the episode of the young woman's meeting with Byron. Lord Byron's lover letter, or sketch the character of Maria. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. E is compulsory. Why does Caroline complain about Arthur? The happy journey. B. Explain the lines with reference to the context. No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied. C. Explain the reason why some of the celebrities are considered to be not at all stuck up to bobbling for her spirit. D. What is Paquinot's reaction on finding his daughter strolling about the romances? E. Why is Chabukov surprised at the appearance of his visitor? A marriage proposal. Group C. 7. Answer the following questions. How does the poet present a more realistic and spiritual view of his wife in the poem? She was phantom of delight. B. What does the world look like to the speaker in the poem, Dover Beach? 8. Answer any three of the following. Explain the lines with reference to the context. But thy eternal summer shall not fade, nor lose possession of that fair thou owes it, nor shall death brag thou wantest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou grows it. B. What is the secret about the birth of Lady Clare? Lady Clare. C. Is like a joyless eye, an apt simile. Explain. D. How does the poet define madness? Do you agree with her definition? Much madness in divinest sense. E. Why is the poem a fragment? Why is it Afro-American? Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2062, Attempt all the questions, Group A 1. Sketch briefly the character of Daisy Buchanan. or comment on the elements of satire in the novel The Great Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. How does Myrtle Wilson's manner of dress contradict with her grammar? B. Why did Tom break Myrtle Wilson's nose? C. What is the role of money in the life of the Long Island dwellers? D. What was the past of Gatsby like? E. How was Nick's attitude towards woman's dishonesty? 3. Is What is Poverty a realistic essay? Discuss with reasons for your answer, or comment on the nature of conflict in the story, the use of force. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. What are the 3 reasons that Mencken gives to support his argument for capital punishment? The penalty of death. B. How was the young narrator able to recover his watch? Di Grasso. A Tale of Odessa. C. Why do we sympathize with Dr. Kirillov? Enemies. D. What are the Mexican attitudes towards the celebrations of life and death? The Day of the Dead. E. How did the hunter claim that he had committed no sin? The Hunter Gracchus Group. B. 5. Sketch the character of Bobolink, or describe the circumstances leading to Bartley's death. Riders to the Sea. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. Explain with reference to the context. Very sinful, but who can blame us? The more you're kept from loving someone, the more you want to love. B. How does the topic of dogs bring about exchange of heated words? A marriage proposal. C. Why are the spinster and the old woman feeling upset in the end? Lord Byron's lover letter. D. Why does Nora come to visit Corporal Brewster? Waterloo. E. Why do Arthur and Caroline cry before they eat the hot dogs? The Happy Journey. 7. Lady Clare is a comic ballad. Comment, or explain the paradox, the sound of silence. Is silence a good thing or bad? The sound of silence. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A. Is compulsory. A. Explain the lines with reference to the context. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what a mortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? B. How does the poet define madness? Much manners in divinest sense. C. What does the poet say about patience in the poem on his blindness? D. How humor is generated in the poem The Mad Gardener's Song. E. What is the importance of being true to each other in a faithless world? Dover Beach. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2063, Attempt all the questions, Group A. 1. How is The Great Gatsby a story on American Dream? Comment, or sketch briefly the character of Nick Carraway, and say why you like or dislike him. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. Why does Tom wish Nick to meet Mistress Myrtle? B. What does Gatsby's car indicate? C. Why is the 13th birthday peculiar to Nick? D. Why does Gatsby say Daisy's voice is full of money? E. What rumors does Nick hear about Gatsby? 3. What are Mencken's 3 reasons for death punishment? Explain if you are for or against him. Or how is war a sad scene in respect of the war front, barracks or hospital? Comment. The episode of war. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. Describe the relationship of the parents of the child. The use of force. B. What is the basic situation in the story, The Jar? C. Why does the major return to the machine in another country? D. Why do we sympathize with Dr. Kirillov? Enemies. E. What is a son according to the story, Dushu? Group B. 5. Describe the Kirby family and its relationship with the neighbors. The Happy Journey, or sketch briefly the character of Lomov. A marriage proposal. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. Explain with reference to the context. A handsome devil like you. How could she possibly resist? She's madly in love with you. Don't worry, madly, and so on. B. How did Brewster show bravery in the battlefield? Waterloo. C. How does Percinet justify his presence in the garden? The Romances. D. How did the American girl happen to go alone to the Acropolis? Lord Byron's lover letter. E. Why does Chabukov have to shout for champagne at the end? A marriage proposal. 7. To the Moon is a poem in similarity with the poet's reality world. Comment or summaries Christine Rossetti's poem, When I Am Dead, My Dearest, and also comment on her personal feelings. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. A. Explain with reference to the context this song of atavistic land, to bitter yearnings lost without a place so long, so far away as Africa's dark face. B. Explain the paradox, the sound of silence. C. What is the sea of faith? Dover Beach. D. What do you know by the silver apples of the moon, and golden apples of the sun? E. What is sonnet? Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2064, attempt all the questions, Group A 1. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. Discuss the role of Nick Carraway in The Great Gatsby. B. Describe the first Gatsby party which Nick attends. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a love story. B. Discuss the significance of the title of The Great Gatsby. C. Discuss the use of symbol in the novel The Great Gatsby. D. The Great Gatsby is a satire on the then American society. Discuss. E. Sketch the character of Tom Buchanan or Daisy. 3. Answer any one of the following questions. A. What are the obsessions of Zedima and Lolo? How are their characters revealed in the story? Explain. The jar. B. How does Parker create a real and graphic account of what being poor actually means on a daily basis? Do you have anything more to add to her definition of poverty? What is poverty? 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. What is the significance of the time salaryman spends outside his job improving work skills and attending training program? A day in the life of salaryman. B. How was the young narrator able to retrieve his watch? Di Grasso, A Tale of Odessa. C. How does Goshgarian draw distinction between hard science and soft science fiction? Zeroing in on science friction. D. Why does Chekhov say unhappy men are selfish enemies? E. Why does the doctor respect the child, but find the parents contemptible? The use of force. Group B 5. Describe the character traits of young romancers as seen in Sylvette and Percinet. The Romances, or sketch the character of Bobolink. To Bobolink for her spirit. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. B. Is compulsory. What is Lomov's idea of marriage? A marriage proposal. B. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. To think that he will be like uncle in 60 years, and that uncle was once like him. He seems a very kind young man, I think. C. Do you see any difference between the attitude of men and women towards the sea? Riders to the Sea. D. Sketch the character of Maria. Riders to the Sea. E. Briefly describe the young woman's meeting with Byron. Lord Byron's lover letter. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. A. How do the functions of the woman change in each stanza in She Was a Phantom of Delight? Or B. Describe how the Dark Lady is more beautiful than the summer's day, and also write how she is as immortal as Shakespeare's sonnet, Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. A. Explain the lines with reference to the context. Priests, examining the entrails of birds, found the heart misplaced, and seeds as black as death, emitting a strong odor. B. Explain how the wonderful strength and skill of the maker is brought out through the description of the tiger. The tiger. C. Why does the poet feel dislocated? Afro-American fragment. D. What is the central idea of much madness is divinest sense? E. Who are the old masters? What is their understanding of human suffering? Musée des Beaux-Arts. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2065, attempt all the questions, Group A, 1. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. Discuss the novel The Great Gatsby as an American Dream. B. Describe the relationship between Tom Buchanan and Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Describe Gatsby parties that become the topic of the area. B. Explain the role of Jordan Baker in the novel. C. Sketch the character of Wilson. D. Discuss the use of symbols in the novel The Great Gatsby. E. Discuss the use of language and the effects it creates to the readers of The Great Gatsby. 3. Answer any one of the following question. A. What does the story tell us about the use of force? How is the Doctor affected by resorting to the use of force? How is the child affected by being forced to open her mouth against her will? The use of force. B. Chekhov says unhappy men are selfish. How does it apply to Dr. Kirillov to a Bogan? Discuss. Enemies. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. How would you describe the interplay between the story of Zedima and that of Lolo? What is the meaning that is defined by this interplay? The jar. B. Describe the world of in another country. C. What is the reason behind the Barson's rejection of his son, whom he had longed to see so much? Dushu. D. How do you interpret Steinem's thesis that your sense of time is partly a function of power or the lack of it? The time factor. E. Identify Mencken's 3 reasons for his support of capital punishment. Do all 3 seem to you equally strong? The penalty of death. Group B. 5. Give an account of the people and places the Kirby family see during their happy journey. The happy journey, or narrate the series of changes in the attitude of Natalia towards Lomov. A marriage proposal. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. I live in the best street in the world because my husband and children live there. B. Describe the circumstances of Bartley's death. Riders to the Sea. C. Narrate the story of the young woman's meeting with Byron. Lord Byron's lover letter. D. Comment on the role of Astroforal and his men. The romances. E. Attempt a character sketch of a Corporal Brewster. Waterloo. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. Discuss the poem, The Tiger, as a beautiful mixture of fierce force and divine spirit into one form. Trace the minute process of forming the tiger in divine furnace. B. What does the world look like? What is it in reality? Discuss on the basis of Dover Beach. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. A. Explain the lines with reference to the context. The sea is calm tonight, the tide is full, the moon lies fair. Upon the straits on the French coast the light gleams and is gone, the cliffs of England stand, glimmering and vast, out in the tranquil bay. B. What is the main objective of Shakespeare comparing the beloved with the summer's day? Shall I compare thee a summer's day? C. Why is Lady Clare intent on sharing secret information with Lord Ronald? Lady Claire. D. Summarize the poem Musée des Beaux-Arts in a small paragraph. E. Explain the paradox The Sound of Silence. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2066. Attempt all the questions, Group A1. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a symbolic novel. B. Sketch the character of Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. How were Gatsby and Daisy separated? B. Why does Nick want to shift his house? C. Why does Gatsby organize weekend parties? D. Describe the funeral of Daisy. E. Who is responsible for Gatsby's death? Y. 3. Answer any one of the following question. A. Do you think the doctor is right to use force? Y. The use of force. B. How did the lieutenant lose his hand? The episode of war. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Do you sympathize with Dr. Kirillov? Y. Enemies. B. Why does the hunter claim that he had committed no sin? The hunter Gracchus. C. Why did Parker leave her job? What is poverty? D. How does salaryman represent Japanese white-collar workers? A day in the life of salaryman. E. How is Lolo Zirafa like? The Jar Group. B. 5. Describe the episode of the young women's meeting with Byron. Lord Byron's lover letter, or describe the character traits of young romancers as seen in Sylvette and Personette. The romances. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. B. Is compulsory. A. Why does Nora come to visit Corporal Brewster? Waterloo. B. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. No man at all can be living forever, and we must be satisfied. C. Why does Lomov visit Shabukov's house in the play? A marriage proposal. D. Sketch the character of Maria. Riders to the Sea. E. What is the attitude of autograph seekers to Lana Turner? To bobbling for her spirits. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. A. Shakespeare wants to immortalize his love. How can he immortalize his love? Shall I compare thee a summer's day? B. What is a paradox? Is silence a good thing or a bad thing? Give reasons. The Sound of Silence. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A. Is compulsory. A. Explain the lines with reference to the context. When I'm dead, my dearest, sing no sad songs for me, plant thou no roses at my head, nor shady cypress tree. B. What is a sonnet? C. Why does the poet feel dislocated? Afro-American fragment. D. What is the secret of Lady Claire's birth? E. How does the poet define madness? Much malice in divinest sense. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2067. Attempt all the questions, Group A1. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. Describe the autobiographical element in The Great Gatsby. B. Discuss how Jay Gatsby assumes his role in the novel. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Discuss in brief Daisy's love with Tom and Gatsby. B. Why does Mr. Wilson lock up his wife into a room? C. Write a short note on Fitzgerald's view of the American dream. D. Describe in brief Gatsby's funeral. E. Evaluate The Great Gatsby, in brief, as a masterpiece of its author. 3. Answer any one of the following question. A. Describe the elements of contrast employed in the story. The episode of war. B. Discuss the difference between the terms class and caste with suitable examples. The time factor. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Describe briefly the basic situation in the story. the jar. B. Describe the world of in another country, in brief. C. Write a short note on the nature of the conflict in the story. The use of force. D. Why did Parker's husband leave her? What is poverty? E. What kind of jobs do women have in Japanese corporations? A day in the life of salaryman. Group B. 5. Answer briefly any one of the following. Describe the events that cause anxiety to the young lovers. The romances. B. Discuss the incidents that bring together Nora Brewster and Archie MacDonald. Waterloo. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. Describe how Bartley dies. Riders to the Sea. B. Why does Caroline complain about Arthur? The happy journey. C. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. My darling, I said something that young here is still struggling against, but it would be foolish to deny it any longer. I said the very same thing you said. Yes, you, Sylvette. When you compared us to the lovers of Verona. D. Show does the doorman treat the group to bobbling for her spirit? E. What brought Lord Byron to Greece? Lord Byron's lover letter. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. What does the world look like? What is it in reality? Dover Beach. B. What does the poem tell us? She was a phantom of delight. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A. Is compulsory. A. What does the tiger represent? The tiger. B. How does the poet contrast the world of the living to the world of the dead? When I am dead, my dearest. C. Explain the lines with reference to the context. A fact so dread, he faintly said, extinguishes all hope. D. What is the theme of on his blindness? E. What has the majority to do with madness? Much manners in divinest sense. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2068, attempt all the questions, Group A. 1. Attempt any one of the following questions. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a comment on the American dream. B. Sketch in detail the character of Daisy. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. Describe about lavish party given by mysterious Gatsby. B. Why does not Daisy attend Gatsby's funeral? C. Narrate Nick as a reliable narrator. D. Comment on Tom Buchanan and Myrtle relationship. E. Discuss The Great Gatsby as a romantic story. 3. Answer any one of the following question. What is the basic conflict in the story? The Valiant Woman. B. How does Goshgarian distinguish science fiction from other kind of fiction? 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. Chekhov says that unhappy men are selfish. How does it apply to Dr. Kirillov and to a Bogan? Enemies. B. What factors contribute to the popularity of fiestas in Mexico? The Day of the Dead. C. Discuss that the Hunter Gracchuses as a terrible story. D. How does the narrator describe Madame Schwartz's personality? A Tale of Odessa. E. Explain Mencken's 3 reasons for his support of capital punishment. The penalty of death. Group B. 5. Answer briefly any one of the following items. Sketch the character of Maria. Riders to the Sea. B. Give an account of the manner in which the various autograph seekers react when people come out of the club to bobbling for her spirit. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. Compare the role of Arthur and Caroline. The happy journey. B. Why do the father and daughter react differently when they think their visitor is dead? A marriage proposal. C. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. And here are the reserves, and here's the trench where I put my new pipe, and over here, where the cough drops it was the Proosians had coming up on our left flank. D. Why does Nora come to visit Corporal Brewster? Waterloo. E. Why are the spinster and the old woman feeling upset in the end? Lord Byron's Lover Letter. Group C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. A. What does the poem tell us? Shall I compare thee a summer's day? B. How does the poet talk about human suffering and relate it to a painting? Musée des Beaux-Arts. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. A. How is a silver trout found and what happens to it later on? The Song of Wandering Emgus. B. What does the little girl see and react on it? The little girl saw her first troop parade. C. Explain the lines with reference to the context. The words of prophet are whiter on the subway walls and tenement halls. D. Which war do you think the poet is talking about? The inner part. E. What is the theme of The Prodigal Regenerate? Higher Secondary Education Board. Examination Papers. Examination 2069. Attempt all the questions. Group A. 1. Attempt any one of the following questions. A. Compare and contrast the characters of J. Gatsby and Tom Buchanan. B. The Great Gatsby assumes that the idea of American dream rooted in the concept of life, liberty and pursuit of happiness is far from reality. Discuss 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Daisy is strongly associated with white color. What does it symbolize? B. Why does Mr. Wilson lock up his wife into a room? C. Discuss the themes of the novel The Great Gatsby. D. Discuss on the role of Dan Cody in the transformation of Gatsby's life. E. What is the implication of the Valley of the Ashes as used in The Great Gatsby? 3. Answer any one of the following question. A. What are the obsessions of Zedima and Lolo? How are their characters revealed in the story? Explain. The Jar. B. How does Parker create a real and graphic account of what being poor actually means on a daily basis? Do you have anything more to add to her definition of poverty? What is poverty? 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. What are the factors which impair the individual's ability to plan for the future? The time factor. B. What are the 3 reasons that Mencken gives for his support of capital punishment? The penalty of death. C. Is Babel's story a melodramatic nonsense or a serious work of art? A Tale of Odessa. D. What is Lolo Zirafa like? The Jar. E. What was the working condition of the old man like? The Big Fish Group. B. 5. Answer briefly any three of the following. A. Contrast the attitude of the men and of the women towards the sea. Riders to the Sea. B. Contrast the characters of the old woman and the sinister. Lord Byron's Lover Letter. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A. Is compulsory. A. Write about the motive of Lomub's visit to Chabukov's house in the play. A marriage proposal. B. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. The monster. He not only grabs other people's property, he calls them names to boot. C. Compare the role of Arthur and Carolyn. The Happy Journey. D. What is the attitude of autograph seekers to Lana Turner? To bobbling for her spirit. E. Comment on the roles of Streforel and his men. The Romancers Group. C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. A. What picture do you get of the creation of the tiger? The tiger. B. Critically appreciated the poem When I Am Dead, My Dearest. 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. A. Do scientists think that immortality is a possibility? Do you know of anything that scientists have done to make man immortal? Shall I compare thee a summer's day? B. What does nearer view mean in terms of the relationship between the poet and the women? She was a phantom of delight. C. Why are sons and daughters compared to inanimate objects? The inner part. D. How does the poet associate his life with light? On his blindness. E. Explain the lines with reference to the context. The old carle's daughter died at the breast. I speak the truth, as I live by bread. Higher Secondary Education Board, Examination Papers, Examination 2070. Attempt all the questions, Group A, 1. Attempt any one of the following questions. 10. Describe Fitzgerald's motives for writing The Great Gatsby. B. Describe the symbols applied in The Great Gatsby. 2. Answer briefly any three of the following. 3 times 5 equals 15. What does Gatsby's car indicate? B. What rumors does Nick hear about Gatsby? C. Discuss the role of social gathering in The Great Gatsby. D. Why did Tom break Myrtle Wilson's nose? E. Describe the funeral of Daisy. 3. Answer any one of the following question. 10. What is Parker's purpose in defining poverty as she does? What is poverty? B. How is war a sad scene in the battlefield, barracks and hospital? Comment. The episode of war. 4. Answer briefly any three of the following. 3 times 5 equals 15. Describe salaryman's job in brief. A day in the life of salaryman. B. How does Goshgarian draw distinction between hard and soft science fiction? Zeroing in on science fiction. C. What are the 3 reasons that Mencken gives for his support of capital punishment? The penalty of death. D. How can you say the old man is rebel in the story, The Big Fish? E. What is the theme of the story, Dushu? Group B. 5. Answer briefly any one of the following. 10. Sketch the character of Bobolink. To Bobolink for her spirit. B. Give an account of the people and places the Kirby family see during the Happy Journey. The Happy Journey. 6. Answer briefly any three of the following items. A is compulsory. 3 times 5 equals 15. Why is Chekhov surprised at the appearance of his visitor? A marriage proposal. B. What is the role of Winston Tutwiler? Lord Byron's lover letter. C. Why does Sylvette call Personette a hero? The romances. D. Explain the following extract with reference to the context. The more you're kept from loving someone, the more you want to love. The romances. E. Describe how Bartley lies. Riders to the Sea Group. C. 7. Answer any one of the following questions. 10. What does the world look like? What is it in reality? Discuss on the basis of Dover Beach. B. Explain the paradox, the sound of silence. Is silence a good thing or bad thing? 8. Answer any three of the following questions. Item A is compulsory. 3 times 5 equals 15. Why does the poet feel dislocated? Afro-American fragment. B. Why are sons and daughters compared to inanimated objects? The inner part. C. What is the poem about? To the moon. D. Explain the lines with reference to the context. Tiger. Tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what a mortal hand or eye could frame the fearful symmetry. The tiger. E. What does the poet tell the dear one, A to do, B. Not to do after the death? When I am dead, my dearest. Thank you for joining with me in this video lesson, and subscribe my channel to get my upcoming video lessons continuously. Keep suggesting us. See you soon.